The rain fell hard on the old military district of Bizen. Water ran down broken concrete and rusted metal. The buildings here were old, forgotten by a world that had moved on to better things. Most people never came to this part of the city. There was nothing here worth seeing. But today was different. Today, the government was selling things it no longer wanted. Kang Doan stood in the back of the crowd, his jacket wet and his hands in his pockets. He was 34 years old, with a tired face and eyes that had seen too many bad deals. He ran a small salvage business with his partner, buying old ships and equipment, fixing what they could, selling what they could not. It was not glamorous work, but it paid the bills. Most of the time. The auction was held in an old warehouse. Maybe 50 people stood inside, most of them dealers like Dohyun. They were here for the usual things: decommissioned shuttles, outdated mining equipment, broken computers that might still have valuable parts. Nothing special. Nothing exciting. The auctioneer was a thin man with a bored voice. He moved through the lots quickly, not caring if anyone bought them or not. Lot 12 sold for 2,000 credits. Lot 23 sold for 800. Lot 31 did not sell at all. Dohyun watched and waited. He had his eye on Lot 44, a small cargo shuttle that might still have a working engine. If he could get it cheap enough, he might make a small profit. But then, the auctioneer reached Lot 47, and something strange happened. Lot 47, the man said, looking at his tablet. One storage hangar, location Sector 7. Sealed for 400 years. He paused, frowning at the screen. Records are corrupted. Contents unknown. The crowd was silent. Nobody moved. Starting bid, 100 credits. Nothing. 50 credits? Still nothing. People looked at each other. The hangar sealed for 400 years, with no records of what was inside. It could be empty. It could be full of toxic waste. It could be anything. 10 credits, the auctioneer said, sounding annoyed. Come on, someone take this off my hands. Dohyun did not know why he raised his hand. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the strange feeling in his chest that told him this was important. Whatever the reason, his arm went up. Sold, the auctioneer said. Lot 47 to the man in the back. 10 credits. Congratulations, you now own a mystery. Some people laughed. Dohyun did not. 3 hours later, he stood in front of the hangar with Baek Yuna. She was his partner, a woman of 30 with short black hair and sharp eyes. She was the best engineer he knew, able to fix almost anything with enough time and parts. She was also the most stubborn person he had ever met. You paid 10 credits for this? She asked, looking at the massive doors. They were covered in rust and dirt, sealed with locks that had not been touched in centuries. Yes, and you have no idea what is inside. Correct. Yuna shook her head. You are an idiot. Maybe, Dohyun said. But I am an idiot with a hangar. Help me open it. It took them 2 hours to cut through the locks. The metal was old but strong, made in a time when things were built to last. Yuna used a plasma cutter, moving slowly and carefully. Dohyun watched, his heart beating faster with each passing minute. Finally, the last lock fell away. The doors groaned, ancient mechanisms fighting against centuries of neglect. Dohyun grabbed one side. Yuna grabbed the other, and they pulled. The doors opened. The smell hit them first. Dust and oil and something else, something old and forgotten. Dohyun coughed, waving his hand in front of his face. Yuna activated the light on her helmet. And then they saw it. The warship filled the hangar like a sleeping giant. It was massive, at least 200 meters long, with a hull of dark metal that seemed to absorb the light. Its design was unlike anything Dohyun had ever seen. Angular, aggressive, built for war. What? What is this? Yuna whispered. Do-hyun walked forward, his boots echoing on the concrete floor. He reached out and touched the hull. The metal was cold under his fingers, cold and silent and dead. This is old, he said. Very old. Yuna moved along the ship, scanning it with her equipment. Her face grew more confused with each reading. The design does not match anything in the Confederacy database. This ship was built before first contact. Way before. That was impossible. Humanity had joined the Galactic Confederacy 200 years ago. Before that, humans were just beginning to explore beyond their solar system. They did not have warships like this. But here it was. Can we sell it? Do-hyun asked. Yuna laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Sell it? Do-hyun? Look at this thing. The engines are fused. The weapons are corroded. I cannot even find a power source. This ship is dead. It has been dead for centuries, so it is worthless? As a ship? Yes. As scrap metal? Maybe. It would take months to cut it apart, and the cost would be more than we would earn. Yuna turned off her scanner. You wasted 10 credits. Do-hyun should have felt disappointed, but he did not. Something about this ship, this place, felt important. He could not explain it. Let us look around more, he said. Maybe there's something else here. They explored the hangar for another hour. The ship took up most of the space, but there were some areas along the walls with old crates and equipment. Most of it was junk. Broken tools, empty containers, things that had rotted away long ago. Then Yuna stopped. Die, she said, her voice strange. Come here. He walked over to where she stood, near the back corner of the hangar. She was looking at the floor. What is it? The dust, she said. Look at the dust. He looked. The floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, centuries of accumulated grime. But in some places, the dust was disturbed. There were marks, like something had moved through recently. Wind? Do-hyun suggested. There is no wind in here. The hangar has been sealed for 400 years. He felt a chill run down his spine. Then what made these marks? Yuna did not answer. Instead, she moved her light to the wall. And Do-hyun saw them. Scratches. Deep scratches in the metal, gouged into the wall like something had clawed at it. The marks were long and thin, arranged in groups of 4. They did not match any species in the Confederacy database. Do-hyun knew this because Yuna was already scanning them, and her face was going pale. These are recent, she said. Within the last few weeks. That is impossible. The hangar was sealed. I know. They stood in silence, staring at the scratches. The hangar suddenly felt different. The shadows seemed deeper. The silence seemed louder. Do-hyun had the sudden, powerful feeling that they were not alone. We should leave, Yuna said. Yes, Do-hyun agreed. We should. But as they walked toward the door, Do-hyun looked back at the warship. It sat there in the darkness, massive and silent and mysterious. A ship from a time nobody remembered, guarded by something that left claw marks on walls. He had paid 10 credits for this hangar. 10 credits for a dead ship and an impossible mystery. As they stepped out into the rain, Do-hyun knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Something was in that hangar. Something had been waiting in the darkness for a very, very long time. And now, for better or worse, he had found it. 3 days passed. Do-hyun could not stop thinking about the hangar. He tried to focus on other work. He had a shuttle to repair, customers to call, bills to pay. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw that warship. He saw those claw marks on the wall. He saw the disturbed dust on the floor. Thought something was in there. Something alive. Yuna told him to forget about it. She said they should seal the hangar and sell it to someone else. Let it be their problem. But Do-hyun could not do that. The mystery was eating at him, keeping him awake at night. On the fourth day, they went back. The hangar looked the same as before. Dark, silent, filled with the massive shape of the ancient warship. But this time, Do-hyun noticed something different. Some of their equipment had moved. A scanner they had left on a crate was now on the floor. A cable that had been coiled neatly was stretched across the concrete. Did you move these? Do-hyun asked. Yuna shook her head. I have not been here since we left. They looked at each other. Neither of them said what they were both thinking. Let us set up cameras, Do-hyun said. I want to see what happens at night. They spent the afternoon installing small cameras around the hangar. It was difficult work. The hangar was huge, and the warship created many shadows and blind spots. But by evening they had coverage of most of the space. I will watch the feeds tonight, Do-hyun said. You will waste your time, Yuna replied. But she did not try to stop him. That night Do-hyun sat in his small apartment, watching the camera feeds on his tablet. For hours, nothing happened. The hangar was still and quiet. The warship sat in the darkness like a monument to forgotten times. Then, at 3:17 in the morning, something moved. Do-hyun sat up straight, his heart pounding. On the screen, he could see a shape emerging from beneath the warship. It was large, moving on multiple limbs, and it seemed to flicker in and out of existence as it walked. The cameras could not capture it clearly. Every time the thing moved, the image became distorted, like static on an old television. But Do-hyun could see enough. He could see the long limbs, the way it walked, the impossible grace of its movement. He watched as the creature moved through the hangar. It went to their equipment and examined it. It touched the crates, the walls, the floor. At one point, it stopped and looked directly at one of the cameras. Do-hyun could have sworn it was looking at him. Then it returned to the warship and disappeared into the shadows. Do-hyun did not sleep that night. The next day, he showed the footage to Yuna. She watched in silence, her face growing more serious with each passing second. What is it? She asked. I do not know. We should report this. To the authorities. To someone. Do-hyun shook his head. And tell them what? That we found a monster in an old hangar? They will think we are crazy. Or they will take the hangar from us and give us nothing. Yuna sighed. She knew he was right. The government did not care about small salvage dealers. If they reported something valuable, it would be taken. If they reported something dangerous, they would be blamed. So what do we do? She asked. Do-hyun took a deep breath. I go back, alone, tonight. That is suicide. Maybe. But that thing has been in there for 400 years, and it has not hurt anyone. If it wanted to kill us, it would have done so already. I think it is waiting for something. Waiting for what? Do-hyun did not have an answer. That night, he entered the hangar alone. He carried only a flashlight and a small knife, knowing that neither would help if the creature decided to attack. But he was not there to fight. He was there to understand. The hangar was darker than before. The overhead lights had stopped working, and his flashlight created only a small circle of light in the vast space. The warship loomed above him, a mountain of dead metal. Do-hyun walked to the center of the hangar and sat down on the cold floor. He turned off his flashlight and waited in the darkness. Time passed. Minutes felt like hours. The silence was absolute, pressing against his ears like a physical weight. Do-hyun forced himself to breathe slowly, to stay calm. Then he heard it. Click. 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 The sound came from somewhere behind him. It was rhythmic, like bones tapping against metal. Do-hyun did not move. He did not turn around. Click. 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 The sound grew closer. Do-hyun could feel something behind him now, a presence that made the air feel thick and heavy. His body screamed at him to run, but he stayed still. Then something spoke. The voice was like grinding stone, deep and ancient and terrible. It spoke a single word in Old Korean, a dialect that Do-hyun barely recognized. Human. Slowly, very slowly, Do-hyun turned around. The creature stood 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in a black shell that seemed to absorb the light. 8 limbs extended from its torso, some touching the ground, others held in the air like weapons. Its head was smooth and eyeless, but Do-hyun could feel it watching him. Looking into him, this was the thing from the cameras. This was the thing that had been guarding the warship for 400 years. Do-hyun opened his mouth, but no words came out. Fear had frozen his throat. The creature tilted its head, studying him. Then it spoke again. "You are afraid." It was not a question. Do-hyun nodded slowly. "Good. Fear keeps you alive. But I will not harm you. Not unless you give me reason." Do-hyun found his voice. "What? What are you?" "I am the keeper." "The keeper of what?" The creature gestured toward the warship with one of its limbs. "I was made to protect this ship, to guard its secrets, to wait for one who is worthy." "Worthy of what?" The keeper moved closer. Space seemed to bend around it, folding like cloth. Do-hyun felt dizzy just looking at it. "Worthy of the truth." Do-hyun tried to understand. "This ship. It is old. Older than the Confederacy. Older than First Contact." "Yes. Who built it?" "Who built you?" The keeper was silent for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, almost sad. "Humans built this ship. Humans built me. In a time before your people forgot how to fight. In a time before they chose to forget." "Chose to forget what?" "The war." Do-hyun felt cold. "What war?" The keeper moved past him, walking toward the warship. Its limbs clicked against the floor, a sound that Do-hyun knew he would hear in his nightmares for years to come. "Come," the creature said. "I have waited 400 years for this moment. I will show you what your ancestors tried to bury. I will show you why this ship still matters. I will show you what is coming." Do-hyun stood on shaking legs. Every instinct told him to run, to get away from this monster and never come back. But he did not run. He could not, because the keeper was not just a monster. It was a guardian, and it had been waiting for someone like him. "Why me?" Do-hyun asked as he followed the creature toward the warship. "I am nobody, a salvage dealer. Why would I be worthy of anything?" The keeper stopped and turned to face him. Its eyeless head seemed to see everything. "Because you did not run. Because you came back. Because you sat in the darkness and waited instead of attacking." The creature paused. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. You have this quality. It is rare." Do-hyun did not feel courageous. He felt terrified. But he kept walking. They reached the warship, and the keeper touched the hull. A hidden door opened, revealing darkness within. "Enter," the keeper said, "and learn the truth that humanity forgot." Do-hyun took a deep breath and stepped into the ship dock behind him. The door closed with a sound like a tomb being sealed. The inside of the warship was dark and cold. Emergency lights glowed red along the floor, creating paths through the shadows. Do-hyun followed the keeper through narrow corridors, past sealed doors and broken equipment. The ship smelled of dust and metal and time. They walked for what felt like hours. The warship was larger than Do-hyun had imagined, a maze of passages and chambers that seemed to go on forever. Some areas were destroyed, walls torn apart by ancient damage. Others were preserved, frozen in time like a museum. Finally, they reached the core of the ship. The chamber was circular, with walls covered in strange symbols that Do-hyun did not recognize. In the center stood a machine unlike anything he had ever seen. It hummed with power, soft blue light pulsing from its surface. And connected to the machine was a stasis pod. Do-hyun approached slowly. Through the frosted glass, he could see a face. A woman. Young, maybe 30 years old, with short dark hair and a scar across her cheek. She looked like she was sleeping. "Who is she?" Do-hyun whispered. "Captain Han Ji-won," the keeper replied. "Commander of the Unyielding Dawn, the last survivor of the fleet." "Fleet? What fleet?" The keeper moved to a console near the pod. It touched the surface, and suddenly the room filled with light. Images appeared in the air around them, floating like ghosts. Do-hyun saw ships, hundreds of them, flying through space. He saw battles, explosions, death. "Before your people joined the Confederacy," the keeper said, "before they made contact with other species, they encountered something else. Something ancient. Something that had been sleeping in the darkness between galaxies for millions of years." The images changed. Do-hyun saw a planet being consumed, cities burning, people screaming, and above it all, shapes that hurt his eyes to look at. Things that were wrong, that should not exist. What are those? We do not know what they call themselves. Your ancestors called them the Devourers. They are older than the stars. They travel between galaxies, consuming everything in their path. Civilizations, planets, entire species. They eat and they grow and they move on. Do-hyun felt sick. And they came here? To this galaxy? Yes, 600 years ago. They entered through the void at the edge of your galaxy and began to feed. Your people were the first to notice. The first to fight. The images showed human ships engaging the enemy. Weapons firing. Explosions in the silent void. But the Devourers did not die easily. They adapted, changed, became stronger with each battle. The war lasted 50 years, the keeper continued. Your people fought alone. They did not know about the other species in the galaxy, and the other species did not know about them. Humanity bled for worlds they had never seen, for people they had never met. What happened? They won. Barely. A final fleet of 300 ships made a desperate attack, driving the Devourers back to the void. But the cost was terrible. Only 7 ships survived. And those survivors knew a terrible truth. What truth? The keeper turned to face him. The Devourers were not destroyed. They were only wounded. They retreated to heal, to grow, to prepare. And one day, they would return. Do-hyun looked at the woman in the stasis pod. And she was part of this? Part of the final fleet? She commanded it. Captain Han was the one who led the charge, who pushed the enemy back. When it was over, she knew that humanity needed to prepare for the return. But the other survivors disagreed. They wanted to forget. They wanted peace, so they erased the history. Yes, they destroyed the records. They dismantled the warships. They made humanity forget that it had ever fought such a war. And they joined the Confederacy as peaceful newcomers, hiding their true nature. Do-hyun felt angry. They had no right. They should have warned people. They should have prepared. Captain Han agreed. That is why she hid this ship. That is why she created me. That is why she put herself in stasis. The keeper touched the pod gently. She wanted to be here when the Devourers returned. She wanted to warn humanity, to lead them again. How long has she been asleep? 412 years. Do-hyun stared at the pod. This woman had been sleeping since before the Confederacy existed. Since before anyone alive today had been born. She had given up everything to wait for a danger that might never come. Is she still alive? Yes, the stasis technology was advanced for its time. Her body has not aged. Her mind is intact. She is waiting, Waiting for what? For someone to wake her. For proof that the Devourers are returning. The next day, Do-yoon brought Yuna to the ship. She did not believe him at first. She thought he had lost his mind, talking about ancient wars and sleeping captains and creatures that ate galaxies. But then she met the Keeper. And then she saw the stasis pod. This is impossible, she kept saying. This is impossible. But it was not impossible. It was real. Yuna began working on the ship's systems, trying to access the old databases. Most were corrupted or destroyed, but some fragments remained. She found records of battles, lists of casualties, technical specifications for weapons that had never been used again. These weapons, she said, her voice shaking, they are incredible. Plasma cannons, gravity bombs, shield systems that should not be possible. Why did humanity stop using these? Because they reminded them of the war, the Keeper answered. They wanted to forget. So they forgot everything. Do-yoon spent hours studying the history that humanity had erased. He learned about the heroes who had died fighting the Devourers. He learned about the planets that had been consumed before the war turned in humanity's favor. He learned about the sacrifices that had been made to save a galaxy that would never know about them. And then Yuna found something that made his blood run cold. Do-hyun, she said, her face pale. Come look at this. He walked to where she was working at a console. On the screen was a map of the galaxy, with data feeds from the Confederacy's Deep Space Monitoring Network. Yuna had hacked into the system, using codes from the old Warship. Look at the edge of the galaxy, she said. The void between us and the next galaxy. Do-hyun looked. At first, he did not see anything unusual. Just empty space. But then, Yuna highlighted certain areas, and he saw them. Energy signatures. Patterns that did not match any natural phenomenon. What am I looking at? Signals, Yuna said. Something is transmitting from the void. Something big. She played one of the signals. It was not a voice, not exactly. It was something else. A sound that seemed to burrow into Do-yoon's brain and make his skin crawl. I ran it through every translation program we have, Yuna said. Nothing worked. So I tried the old databases from this ship. And I got this. She played the translation. The voice that came from the speakers was cold and empty, like wind blowing through a dead world. It spoke words that made Do-hyun's heart stop. We remember you. 3 words. Just 3 words. But Do-hyun understood what they meant. The Devourers were awake. They had healed. They had grown. And they remembered the species that had hurt them. The species that had driven them back into the void. Humanity. Do-hyun turned to look at the stasis pod. At the sleeping woman who had fought these monsters 400 years ago. Wake her, he said. Wake her now. The Keeper moved to the pod. Are you certain? Once she wakes, there is no going back. The war will begin again. Do-hyun thought about his life before this moment. The small apartment. The struggling business. The daily routine that had felt so important. None of it mattered now. Nothing mattered except this. The war is coming whether she wakes or not, he said. At least this way, we have a chance. The Keeper nodded slowly. Then it touched the stasis pod, and the machine began to hum. The ice on the glass started to melt. And Captain Han Ji-won, who had been sleeping for 400 years, opened her eyes. Her body shook as the stasis chamber opened, and she fell forward onto her hands and knees. She gasped for air like a drowning person, her muscles cramping after centuries of sleep. Do-hyun rushed forward to help her, but the Keeper stopped him with one massive limb. Wait, the creature said. Give her time. It took several minutes for the captain to recover. She breathed deeply, slowly, forcing her body to remember how to function. Finally, she looked up. Her eyes were sharp and clear, the eyes of a soldier. How long? She asked. Her voice was rough from disuse. 412 years, the keeper answered. Han closed her eyes. Do-hyun expected her to cry, to scream, to show some sign of grief for everything she had lost. But she did not. When she opened her eyes again, there was only one question. Are they back? Do-hyun stepped forward. We found signals from the void. A message. It said, "We remember you." Han stood up slowly. Her body was weak, but her will was strong. She walked to the console where Yuna had been working and looked at the data. Show me everything, she said. For the next several hours, they showed her. The signals from the void. The energy patterns at the edge of the galaxy. The Confederacy's monitoring network, which had noticed the anomalies but did not understand what they meant. Han absorbed it all in silence. She asked questions sometimes, sharp and precise, cutting to the heart of each issue. Do-hyun could see the soldier in her, the commander who had led hundreds of ships into battle. When they finished, Han stood by the viewport, looking at nothing. How is the Confederacy prepared for war? She asked. Yuna and Do-hyun looked at each other. Neither wanted to answer. Tell me, Han said. I need to know the truth. The Confederacy has been at peace for almost 200 years, Yuna said carefully. There are defense fleets, but they are designed for small conflicts. Border disputes. Pirate attacks. Nothing like what you fought. And humanity? We are members of the Confederacy. Our military is integrated with theirs. We have ship soldiers, but... Yuna paused. The other species do not respect us. They think we are young, primitive. They do not know about the war. Han laughed. It was a bitter sound, with no joy in it. So we won the war, erased our history, and became the children of the galaxy. She shook her head. My crew died for this. 30,000 soldiers died so that humanity could become soft. You could not have known, Do-hyun said. No, but I can do something about it now. Han turned to face them. You asked me why I went into stasis. It was not just to warn humanity. It was to lead them. I knew this day would come, and I prepared. Prepared how? Han looked at the keeper. Show them. The creature moved to another console and activated it. New data appeared on the screens, maps and locations, and encrypted files. Before I went to sleep, I hid things across the galaxy, Han explained. Weapons caches, emergency shelters, communication networks, technology that the others wanted to destroy. I could not save everything, but I saved enough. Yuna's eyes went wide. You have been planning this for 400 years? I have been waiting for 400 years. There is a difference. She walked to where Yuna was sitting and put a hand on her shoulder. You are an engineer, yes? I can tell by your hands. By the way you look at machines. Yuna nodded. I need you. The Keeper has kept this ship intact, but it cannot fly. Its engines are dead. Its weapons are destroyed. But its communication systems might still work. Can you repair them? Yuna looked uncertain. The technology is 400 years old. It is completely different from modern systems. But can you learn? Can you adapt? Yuna took a deep breath. Yes, I think so. Good. Han turned to Do-hyun. And you, the salvage dealer. The man who bought a hangar for 10 credits and found a warship. I am nobody, Do-hyun said. I am not a soldier. Neither was I, once. I was a cargo pilot before the war. I flew supply ships to mining colonies. When the Devourers came, I learned to fight. You will learn too. Learn to fight those things? How? Han smiled. It was a dangerous smile. The smile of someone who had stared into the void and survived. The Devourers are powerful, but they are not gods. They have weaknesses, patterns. I spent 50 years learning how to hurt them. I will teach you everything I know. For the next week, Han trained them. She was not gentle about it. She pushed them hard, forcing them to learn tactics and strategies that humans have forgotten centuries ago. She showed them the Devourer's weaknesses, the moments when they were vulnerable, the weapons that could kill them. The Keeper helped. It demonstrated its abilities, the things that humanity had built into it during the First War. It could phase through solid matter, moving through walls and doors like they did not exist. It could bend space around itself, appearing in places that should have been impossible to reach. It was a living weapon designed to hunt the Devourers. We created the Keepers to fight in places where humans could not go, Han explained. Inside enemy ships, behind enemy lines. They are assassins, saboteurs. The Devourers learned to fear them. How many Keepers are there? Do-hyun asked. Han's face grew sad. There were thousands. Now, as far as I know, only this one remains. The others were destroyed in the war or deactivated during the erasure. At night, Yuna worked on the communication systems. It was difficult work, connecting ancient technology to modern networks. But slowly, she made progress. By the end of the week, she had restored basic functions. We can broadcast, she announced. Not far, maybe a few hundred light years, but it is something. Then, we start with the Confederacy, Han said. We warn them. We tell them what is coming. They compose the message together. Han spoke while Yuna recorded. She explained who she was, what she had seen, what the signals from the void meant. She provided data, evidence, proof that the Devourers were real and they were returning. They sent a message to the Confederacy's Central Command, to the military leadership, to every major government in known space thought, and they waited. The response came 3 days later. It was not what they had hoped. Your claims have been reviewed and rejected, the message said. There is no evidence of any threat from beyond the galaxy. Historical records show no war of the kind you describe. Your transmission is considered a hoax or a symptom of mental illness. Further contact will be ignored. Han read the message in silence. Then she crushed the tablet in her hand. They think we are crazy, Yuna said. No, they think we are liars. They cannot accept the truth because it would mean accepting that their peaceful galaxy is an illusion. Han threw the broken tablet against the wall. We do not have time for this. The Devourers do not care if the Confederacy believes in them. They will come regardless. Then what do we do? Do-hyun asked. Before Han could answer, an alarm sounded. Yuna ran to her console and pulled up the data. Something is happening, she said. A colony on the edge of Confederacy space. The monitoring station just went dark. Han moved to look at the screen. Her face went pale. It has begun, she whispered. The first attack. On the screen, they could see the last transmission from the colony. Ships appearing from nowhere. Energy weapons that broke apart matter at the molecular level. And in the background, shapes that were impossible to describe. Things that did not obey the laws of nature. The Devourers had returned, and the Confederacy was not ready. We tried to warn them, Yuna said, her voice shaking. We tried. Warning is not enough anymore, Han replied. Now we must show them. The Confederacy does not believe in words. They will believe in action. She turned to the Keeper. Prepare yourself. We are going to war. The creature's eyeless head turned toward her. I have been preparing for 400 years. I am ready. Han looked at Do-hyun and Yuna. This is your last chance to walk away. What comes next will be dangerous, deadly. I cannot promise you will survive. Do-hyun thought about the choice. He thought about his small life, his safe routine, the world he had known before he bought that hangar. It all seemed very far away now. I am staying, he said. Yuna nodded. Me too. Han smiled. For the first time, it was a real smile, warm and grateful. Then let us begin. The Confederacy fleet arrived at the edge of the galaxy with 300 ships. They were the pride of the allied species, armed with the best weapons that modern science could create. Their commanders were confident. The strange signals from the void were probably just some unknown natural phenomenon. The colony that went dark was probably just a technical failure. They were wrong. The battle lasted 17 minutes. The Devourers came from everywhere and nowhere at once, tearing through space in ways that should have been impossible. Their weapons unmade matter, breaking atoms apart like they were nothing. Their bodies shifted and changed, adapting to every attack the Confederacy ships could throw at them. When it was over, not a single Confederacy ship remained. The broadcasts from the dying fleet spread across the galaxy. People on thousands of worlds watched as their defenders were destroyed. They saw the Devourers for the first time, those impossible shapes that hurt the mind to look at. And they understood that everything they believed about safety and peace was a lie. Panic followed. The species of the Confederacy blamed each other for the defeat. Old rivalries came back to life. Some governments closed their borders. Others demanded answers from their military leaders. Everyone was afraid, and fear made them stupid. Humanity tried to help. The human government offered ships, soldiers, resources. But the other species pushed them away. You are too primitive, they said. You have nothing to offer. Stay out of our way. Da-Hyun watched the news feeds from the warship, his fists clenched in anger. These were the species that humanity had once saved, even if they did not know it. And now they treated humans like children. Let them reject us, Han said. She was standing at the command console, studying tactical data. Their pride will not protect them from the Devourers. When they are desperate enough, they will listen. What do we do until then? Yuna asked. Han smiled that dangerous smile. We show them what humanity can do. Over the next few days, Han activated her hidden network. Using old codes that had survived for 400 years, she sent signals to weapons caches and emergency shelters across the galaxy. Most did not respond. They had been destroyed or deactivated long ago. But some did. On a moon in the outer territories, an ancient arsenal came online. On a dead planet in neutral space, a communication hub activated for the first time in centuries. On a dozen worlds, hidden installations responded to Han's call. We have resources, Han announced. Not many, but enough. Old weapons. Old ships. Things that the Devourers have seen before. Things they might remember. Will it be enough? Do-Hyun asked. No, but it will be a start. The Keeper was ready. It had spent 400 years conserving its strength, preparing for this moment. Now it was fully awake, fully powered, and eager to hunt. Send me to the front, it said. Let me show the Confederacy what humanity created. Han agreed. Using a small transport ship that Yuna had repaired, they sent the Keeper to a colony that was about to be attacked. The Confederacy had already written it off as lost. Their ships were too far away, their forces too weak. The Devourers arrived, expecting easy prey. They found something else. The Keeper attacked from the shadows, phasing through walls and hulls like they were smoke. It struck at the enemy's weak points, the places where their impossible bodies were vulnerable. It killed them one by one, moving faster than they could track, appearing where they did not expect. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the colony was saved. The Devourers were dead, and the Keeper stood alone in the center of the destruction, covered in the strange blood of its enemies. The colonists broadcast what they had seen. The images spread across the galaxy in hours. A creature that could phase through solid matter. A weapon that could kill Devourers. Something that the Confederacy had never seen before. Something human. The questions started immediately. What was this creature? Where did it come from? How had humans created something so powerful? Han answered them with a message that she broadcast on every frequency. This is Captain Han Ji-won of the human warship Unyielding Dawn. 400 years ago, humanity fought a war against the Devourers. We were alone. We had no allies. We bled for a galaxy that did not know we existed. We drove the enemy back into the void, and then we chose to forget. We chose to become soft. We chose to join your Confederacy and pretend we were just another young species. She paused, letting the words sink in. We were wrong to forget, but we were not wrong to fight. Humanity knows how to hurt these creatures. We have weapons they fear. We have soldiers they cannot predict. We have been preparing for this moment, even if we did not know it. Han leaned forward, her eyes burning with determination. You called us primitive. You called us young. You pushed us away when we offered help. But we are the ones who remember the dark. We are the ones who have walked through fire and survived. And now, we are the only ones who can save you. The response was immediate. Species that had mocked humanity sent desperate messages begging for alliance. Governments that had rejected human help now asked for guidance. Military leaders who had ignored the warnings now wanted to know everything. Han did not gloat. There was no time for that. She organized. She planned. She trained. She turned Do-hin and Yuna into commanders, teaching them to lead forces in ways they had never imagined. She shared the knowledge of the old war, the tactics that had worked against the Devourers. The Keeper continued to fight. It attacked enemy formations, disrupting their plans and buying time for the Confederacy to organize. Each victory gave the allied species more hope. Each dead Devourer proved that the enemy could be killed. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The final battle came 3 months later. The Devourers had gathered their full strength, preparing for a massive assault on the core worlds of the Confederacy. If they succeeded, the galaxy would fall. Everything would be lost. The Allied fleet assembled to meet them. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all united against a common enemy. And at the front of the formation flew a single human vessel, a small transport that carried Captain Han Ji-won and her crew. This is it, Han said over the communication channel. 400 years ago, my ancestors gave everything to stop these creatures. Today, we finish what they started. Do-hyun stood beside her, his heart pounding. He was no longer the salvage dealer who had bought a hangar for 10 credits. He was a commander now, responsible for lives, for worlds, for the future of his species. Are you ready? Han asked him. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. The auction, the warship, the Keeper, the sleeping captain who had woken to fight one last war. Yes, he said. I am ready. The battle began. The Devourers came in waves, their impossible bodies twisting through space. The Confederacy ships fought back with everything they had, using the tactics that Han had taught them. For the first time, they knew where to aim. They knew when to strike. They knew how to hurt the enemy. The Keeper led the assault teams, phasing through Devourer formations and striking at critical targets. It moved like a ghost, a nightmare made real, the embodiment of humanity's rage and determination. And at the center of it all stood Han Ji-won, commanding from her small ship, directing the battle with the skill of someone who had been born for this. The fighting lasted for hours. Ships were destroyed. Lives were lost. But slowly, step by step, the Devourers were pushed back. Their numbers thinned. Their attacks grew weaker. For the first time in thousands of years, they knew what it meant to lose. The final blow came from the Keeper. It phased into the heart of the Devourer command ship and destroyed it from within. Without leadership, the remaining enemies scattered and fled, disappearing into the void. The galaxy held its breath. Then, across thousands of worlds, people began to celebrate. They had won. The aftermath was long and difficult. There were wounds to heal, worlds to rebuild, alliances to strengthen. The Confederacy would never be the same. They had learned that peace was not guaranteed, that safety had to be earned, that some threats could not be ignored. And they had learned something about humanity. Do-hyun returned to Earth a year later. He stood in front of the old hangar, looking at the doors that he had cut open what felt like a lifetime ago. The unyielding dawn was still inside, still silent, still dead. But it had served its purpose. Yuna stood beside him. "What will you do now?" she asked. Do-hyun thought about it. He could go back to his old life, selling salvage and living quietly. But that life felt distant now, like a dream he had once had. "I do not know," he said. "But I know I cannot go back to what I was. None of us can." They stood in silence for a moment, remembering everything they had been through. The fear, the pain, the victory. "The keeper wants to stay here," Yuna said. "It says it will guard the ship until it is needed again." Do nodded. Some things should not change. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that he had once seen as distant and unreachable. They were different now. They were battlefields. They were memories. They were home. Humanity had forgotten its past once. They had erased their history, buried their strength, pretended to be something they were not. And it had almost cost them everything. But they had remembered. In the end, when it mattered most, they had remembered who they were. The universe was vast and full of dangers. But humanity would face,